Good afternoon, and welcome to the Stumps Show, where we bring you a recap of play on day three of the fourth test between India and Australia as part of the Border Gavaskar Trophy. This one is being played at the Melbourne Cricket Ground. The day's play was really a story in three acts. The first session was about consolidation by the Indian batting, the second about acceleration and about turning the pressure back on the Australian bowling and fielding. The third was high drama as Nitish Kumar Reddy reached his maiden Test century amidst falling wickets and rolling dark clouds that presaged the rain that brought the day's play to a premature close, with India on 358 for 9, still trailing Australia by 116 runs, with Nitish Reddy batting on 105 and last man Siraj on 2. This is the third, possibly the fourth time that Nitish Reddy has top scored for India. On the previous occasions, Reddy had the tail for company, and that forced him to play more shots than he probably wanted to. Shots that eventually got him out in the 40s. This time, he had the rare luxury of having a reliable partner at the opposite end in Washington Sundar. The two put on a century partnership for the seventh wicket, the highest partnership, by the way, for that wicket for the eighth wicket, the highest partnership for that wicket by Indians against Australia. Uh, and the fact that he had a reliable partner meant that Reddy could slip into a more conventional mode and play the kind of test innings that he has shown he is capable of. The innings was characterized not just by fluent stroke play, but also by an awareness of where his off stump is. Reddy left a lot of deliveries outside that off stump. He waited for the balls that he could hit with impunity. Took a lot of singles, about 36 of them, alongside four twos and I think five threes. There was a lot of very good running between the wickets, particularly between Sundar and Reddy. And all told, what this has done is, I remember yesterday saying that the odds were heavily in favor of Australia. I think I put it at 70-30 in favor of the home side. The Sundar Reddy partnership shifted the dynamic to such an extent that now you would almost call it even. Australia is still ahead with 116, which is a sizable first innings lead by any yardstick. And with only Mohammad Siraj for company, there is no real way of telling how many more Reddy will be able to add to the overnight score. But what this now means is that if Australia wants to win this test match, and it has to win the test match if it wants to stand a chance of getting its hands back on the Border Gavaskar Trophy that has eluded it for a decade and more, then Australia will have to put at least 250 runs on the board in real quick time and still leave it with enough overs in hand to bowl the Indians out in the second innings. Uh, if play goes the distance tomorrow and day after, there is 180 overs left in the game. The question that Australia now has to answer, and that is after it takes the last remaining wicket, the question that Australia will have to answer is how many overs does it need to stand a chance of getting India out on a wicket that still looks good for batting. No cracks have really opened up. There is no telling whether cracks will open up tomorrow, but otherwise, the wicket has played fair. There's been value for shots. And as Nitish and Sundar demonstrated through their uh, game turning partnership, if you are willing to respect the norms of Test cricket, if you're willing to play uh, according to the conditions and according to the bowling, then you can bat for a long time. Given all that, how many overs does Australia need? 120, 130? Because the more overs it calculates as being necessary, the less overs it has to really put a winning total, second innings total on the board. If you remember the previous test match, Australia attempted to put a sizable score on the board and ended up with 70 something for the loss of 6 or 7 wickets in its rush for a sizable score. Getting back to the Nitish Reddy Washington Sundar partnership, this might on the face of it sound like hyperbole, but what it reminded me of is the 2001 Test match in Kolkata against Steve Waugh's Australians, when VVS Lakshman and Rahul Dravid put together that iconic partnership that lasted an entire day. Clearly, these two partnerships are not alike in terms of the runs scored, but they are similar in terms of how India, then the home team, now the tourists, managed to turn back a losing situation and put itself into a position where it can draw the game. And given a bit of luck, who knows, you might even pull off a completely unexpected win, which will really be a turnaround for the gods and one of the greatest feats of modern day Test cricket if that happens. How could it possibly happen? Well, if Australia, in its push for quick runs, starts losing wickets in a heap and ends up with a below par second innings total, then India has the opportunity to really push for a win. It has some, at least, of its players are coming back into form. I would expect that in the second innings, Rohit Sharma will drop back down the order and KL Rahul and Yashasvi Jaiswal will open. One of the quirks about Jaiswal is that, barring this particular match, he's rarely scored in the first innings. He's scored more frequently in the second innings of a test. You have Jaiswal back in form, Virat Kohli showing signs of recovering form, and then you have the likes of Jadeja, of Nitish Kumar Reddy, etc. I have a question from the audience. Should India consider promoting Nitish Rana? Nitish Reddy, I think you mean up the order for the remainder of the series? Yes. In fact, I've been writing session reports on my Substack blog, and the point I'd made both in uh, the session report at T and also in the final session report was that Nitish Reddy needs to be played as a pure batsman. The problem that is going to bring up is, who do you drop? The logical contender for the axe is Rohit Sharma, but Rohit Sharma is the captain. How do you drop him? It's a problem that the Indian selectors will have to solve because Reddy is far too good to be batting at 7 and 8. He batted like a proper test batsman should bat. Um, and like I said in the intro to this interactive session, he- it's he has top scored for the side 3, maybe 4 times. Uh, he's just proving too valuable a batsman to waste. HK wants to know if Nitish Reddy should be batting at number 3 in the second innings and Rohit down to number 5. Um, your batting order would probably be. Uh, it's an interesting thought because Rohit not at 5. The earliest he can come in is at number 6. It is an interesting thought, particularly if we are chasing a target. What happens if KL Rahul and Yashasvi Jaiswal open the innings, look to play out that first burst from Stark and Cummins, and then you have Nitish Reddy probably at 3, Virat Kohli coming in at 4, Rishabh Pant at 5, Rohit Sharma at 6, followed by Jadeja, Washington Sundar, etc. It seems to be a logical move. Uh, I don't know how well the youngster will adapt to being moved up and down the order, but he seems to have a very clear head on his shoulders. The most impressive facet of his batting today was how composed he was, how assured outside his off stump, and how straight he played. Um, I was looking. at the wagon wheel that Cricinfo has. And what was remarkable was that most of his runs were scored on the offside, which argued that he played with a very straight bat and he played in the V as much as possible. Uh, that's how you play in testing conditions against bowling that knows how to utilize swing and seam. So, as far as the abilities are concerned, I think Reddy could well go in at three in this particular game in the second innings. Uh, the question is whether he has the mental fortitude to take that additional pressure. Because if he's going at number three, the onus on him will be to bat deep and also to bat fast. Harish Kotian asks, even if they concede a lead of around 90 to 100, could India still bounce back to push for victory? This ready century will give them a lot of self belief, and the pitch is offering some turn for the spinners. To take the two uh, lower points first, Harish, yeah, this ready century and the partnership with Washington Sundar will actually have had a very beneficial impact on the mood in the dressing room because this morning, late last night and this morning, there would have been a siege mentality. It is the third successive test in which India is finding itself behind the eight ball. Uh, that mode would have changed a little bit. It would have eased the pressure a little bit on the Indians. The pitch is offering some turn for the spinners. More importantly, it's offering good bounce. If you saw the wicket of Washington Sundar, that was not so much turn as the surprising bounce of length that took the top edge of Sundar's bat and went to first slip. So yeah, the spinners would come increasingly into play, both in the Australian second innings and in the Indian chase, if there is a chase. Um, if they concede a lead of 90 to 100, can India bounce back to push for victory? Yeah. The caveat is, I think this is what I was discussing in the intro section of this. You have to calculate overs. This is now a game of not sessions, but overs, really, because you have 90 overs in a day. It's highly unlikely that we get through 90 overs. We haven't yet in this entire series. But if you say we have about 85 possible overs on a day's play, that gives us what? Uh, 170 overs of play. Um, Australia needs to figure out how many overs it needs to try and bowl India out in the second innings. And remember that the onus of winning this match is really on Australia because if they want the Border Gavaskar Trophy back, they have to win this game and go to Sydney at least 2-1. I mean, they go to Sydney 2-1 up. So if Australia wants to win and the Indian attack hopefully will rely more on spin in the second innings, uh, if Australia wants to win this, they will have to find the balance between scoring fast and not losing too many wickets. Because as we saw in the second innings of the previous test, when Australia to put a lot of runs on the board in quick time, they lost wickets in a heap. If that happens, if Australia gets bowled out cheap, then India is in pole position to push for a win. Do you think the seniors have got to learn something from Nitish Reddy? Sheetal Soni's question. Uh, Absolutely, yes. The first thing they have to learn is to play Test cricket the way it is meant to be played, and that doesn't mean either. That doesn't. That doesn't really mean either just standing there blocking or leaving everything and waiting for the ball to come that has your name on it. It means finding that right balance between defense and attack. That is what is noticeable about Nitish Reddy's innings. His first 85 runs came in just 119 deliveries, and it is not like he was hitting out at everything. He was choosing the right balls to hit. He was taking singles, twos, threes to keep the board ticking over. He was leaving when he had to. It was absolutely brilliant test match batting. And I think that's something that the seniors have to really learn. You can't go hard at this kind of bowling you have to settle in to play tests the way tests are meant to be played. Tabi Lex says, you really think Jadeja and Sundar can spin the Aussies out? If the Aussies uh, play proper cricket, probably not. I don't. Yeah, there is a turn on this wicket, there is bounce on this wicket, but I don't think there is inordinate turn. There is bounce, but I don't think the turn is too sharp and too quick. So it's not like, say, the pitches that we had in the home series against New Zealand, where every second ball brings a wicket. What could upset the Aussie apple cart is if they try to score too many runs too quickly and lose wickets in the process. If that happens, then yes. But in the normal course of events, I still don't see it. And Tabilex has a follow up. If they do spin Aussies out, what about Lion in the Indian innings? Exactly. Uh, Wickets. One of the things that you noticed during the Sundar Nitish Reddy partnership is that Nathan Lyon was bowling well throughout the day. It is he couldn't break through simply because both the batsmen, both the left-hander and the right-hander, were playing the ball on merits, and that is going to be the key, whether it is the Australians against Jadeja and Sundar or the Indians against Lyon. So I'm not saying that there is the prospect of Sundar and Jadeja breaking through. What I'm saying is now the onus is on Australia to figure out what it wants to do and how it wants to do it. Um, the point I made about the number of overs that are left in the game, 170, let's say you end the Indian innings with in 1 or 2 overs. On resumption tomorrow, there are 2 overs lost for change of innings. So you have a maximum of around 175 overs. India, for the first time in 7 tests, actually, has just managed to, for the first time in 7 tests, managed to go beyond the second new ball in its first innings. Uh, I'm guessing that this would have given them new life and new confidence. So, would you say you need 100, maybe 110 overs to bowl India out? In that case, you have about 60 to 65 overs left. How many runs can you score in that period with at what kind of run rate? That's going to be the conundrum. The one good thing going for Australia is that it'll probably end up with a lead of around 100 runs at the least. It's currently leading by 116. Utkarsh Mishra says, my thoughts on Rishabh Pant's shot selection. My thoughts are fairly clear. You cannot judge a batsman based on the outcome of a shot. Rishabh Pant has played this exact same way throughout the series, and he's bailed India out repeatedly after the top order has failed. This is not the first ramp shot that he's trying to play. This is not the first time that he's playing one of his patented falling over shots and stuff like that. On previous occasions, when Rishabh Pant pulled those shots off, everybody praised him. Now that he got out, it's like, oh, he should be more careful. He should be more, I don't know what. But if he had played the way you guys seem to want to play him now, then you wouldn't have had those previous knocks of his. Uh, Try this thought experiment. If you look at that shot, the ball was actually intended to go over fine leg. He got caught at deep third man, just behind the keeper's back. If that shot had landed properly and if it had gone over the fine leg boundary as it was intended to, what would you have said? Um, Also, note one thing. Today, there was a point in the second session when Nitish Kumar Reddy tried to play a ramp shot. He got into an awful tangle. He got hit on the abdomen almost. It could have so nearly been an LBW. Would you have questioned that shot selection then? Or are you not going to ask that question now just because he saved? He didn't get out. My point is, don't judge a batsman on the basis of outcomes alone. Judge him on in totality. The totality of Rishabh Pant is that he plays unorthodox shots, and that is responsible for his success. On the rare occasions when that unorthodox shot doesn't come off, you can't all dump on him. By the way, remember those ramps that Sam Constas tried to play in the first 3 overs against Jasprit Bumrah? If one of them had been mishit, the entire conversation about Constas would have been different. Tabi says, what is the target that Australia will set India? What is the target Australia probably wants to set India? It's a mix of runs and the overs to get them in. For example, if you set a target of 300 and give them 110 overs, that is a chase of less than three and over. There is less pressure on the on the batting side, more pressure on the bowling side in such a case. So, how do you find that balance? Say 350 in 100 overs looks good, but that means that Australia will have to score about 250 runs in something like 60 to 65 overs. It's going to be fun watching them try. And interestingly, the key could probably lie with Constance again, because if he gets off to a flyer, then anything is possible. You also have Travis Head to follow. Travis Head has one failure, but if Australia is looking to put a sizable score on the board, I would expect Head to come up the order and probably hit a few. Uh, Tabi Lex also wants to know who, in my opinion, was the best bowler for Australia today. Uh, he suggests Borland. Scott Boland was the most consistent and the most consistently threatening bowler. I think the best bowler was Pat Cummins, though, uh, taken together with his captaincy. Uh, Cummins was lethal in pretty much every spell that he bowled. He ended up with, I think, 3 wickets, but he deserved a lot more. And it was a masterclass in the use of the short ball to really upset the batsman's rhythms. He's been doing that even in the previous test match and earlier in this test match on day two. Um, I don't know. It's a judgment call. My call would be Cummins for uh, the sheer quality of the pace bowling and Bolin for the incredible, almost metronomic consistency and the constant threat that he posed. Uday Sodi wants to know what is Nitish Reddy doing that the top batting order is not. Uday, I think what Nitish is doing, one, he has the strokes, but the most important facet of Nitish Reddy's batting has been one, his judgment of what balls to play and what balls to leave, and two, the fact that he figured out that on a pitch where there is swing, seam, and bounce, you do not play with the open bat face. He played with a straight bat. The bat face was neither shut nor slanted the other way. So he took both edges almost entirely out of the equation and he played as straight as he possibly could. He also understood the balance between leaving deliveries and defending versus knocking the ball around, taking singles, waiting for the bowlers to lose their patience and give him the hittable ball. So none of that was really on display from the top order, barring the brief innings of KL Rahul and the innings of Yashasvi Jaiswal. Harish Kotian says spinners from both teams, that is Lyon, Jadeja, and Sundar, have taken 6 wickets in 65 overs in the first 2 days. Do you see them making more of an impact in the last 2 days? The pitch still looks good. The pitch looks good. No cracks have opened up visibly yet. There has been no real sign of uneven bounce. Um, I don't know if the conditions will persist. Normally, days 2 and 3 are the best for batting. The pitch is at its most stable. It doesn't mean that you come in tomorrow morning and find that the pitch has changed entirely in character. Pitches don't, suddenly wake up in the middle of the night and decide to do the other thing. Uh, I don't know what the pitch will behave like on day 5. You have to remember that these are drop-in pitches, and pretty much nobody knows what will happen by days 4 and 5. But to your point about the fact that three top quality spinners have managed only 6 wickets in 65 overs across 2 days, that's pretty much how tests in Australia are played. In the first innings, uh, almost certainly the spinner's role is containment and keeping one end tight, allowing fast bowlers to operate in rotation at the other and take most of the wickets. So not really surprised about that. I still want to know if the pitch will retain this character and if it will continue to provide this kind of bounce. And in that case, how well the spinners will be able to operate in the next innings. Abilex has a lot of questions. Here's another one. Has Cummins been a better captain than Rohit this series? And is Rohit's batting failures playing on his captaincy? To take the second question first, I don't know quite what he is feeling, but if you take the conversation out of cricket and just look at an organization, the leader of any organization, if he is performing well, that translates to the rest of the team. And it also gives the leader the confidence to demand good work from everybody else. Rohit is nowhere in a position to make that kind of demand. He is nowhere in a position to criticize others for their failures, whether with the bat or with the ball, because uh, I think I saw the statistic someplace where in his last 14 test innings, he has managed 155 runs. And that 155 runs includes 52 runs in one particular inning. So in 13 test innings, he has managed just 103 runs. Nobody deserves his place in the side on the basis of that. To the question about Cummins's captaincy versus that of Rohit, not just in this series, I think Cummins has proved to be a surprisingly good captain for Australia right through. I think he's now leading in his 32nd game, and he has won 18, I think, which is a seriously good record. That's just about a 58-60% win rate. But the team is also partly in a rebuilding mode during this time, particularly after the exit of David Warner, for instance, from the top of the order. The team went through this period of adjustment when it didn't know who was going to open. Uh, I thought he's led superbly well. There was this moment today when, if you remember, when Nitish Kumar Reddy got stranded at the wrong end, it was actually Nathan Lyon who was supposed to bowl. Cummins took the onus on himself to come in, and he got the wicket of who was it? Jasprit Bumrah. He almost got the wicket of Siraj as well, but Siraj survived, and that allowed Nitish to get to his 100. But yeah, that's the kind of sharp thinking that you need. And you saw that throughout the day's play. He was adjusting his fields constantly, he was rotating his bowlers very effectively. It was a good display of captaincy. Aslam Hunani says, do you think India stands a chance in this test? Look, yesterday I said 70-30 in favor of Australia. Today I'd probably say something like 55-45. We'll probably be able to get to be in a better position once we see how play unfolds in the morning session tomorrow. Uh, Prasanna says Reddy seems to have fired well for India down the order. In your assessment, what has worked for Reddy? That's what I just mentioned. He has the shots, he has the confidence. His batting is a mix of the classical and the uh, postmodern. Uh, More to the point, he has a good head on his shoulders. He doesn't get flustered by any situation. He doesn't get panicky. Even if you look at that point where he was just one run short of his 100 and one wicket fell at the other end and Siraj just hung on. The temptation would have been when he got the strike back to go after the first ball that he faced. He didn't. He played out two deliveries because both of those deliveries deserved respect. The third ball was fuller in length and on the stumps, which meant that Reddy could actually free his arms and play that lofted shot over mid-on. He waited for the ball to hit. I think that's his biggest strength. He has the shots and he knows when to play them. Uh, since it is likely that Rohit's tenure as captain will end after the series, regardless of the result, who would you like as the next skipper? Bumrah. Bumrah is just about the only option. This is from Tabi Lex. This is Bumrah is probably the only realistic option. The question in my mind is, if our bowling attack continues to be as lopsided as it is now, with all the pressure on Bumrah to deliver with the ball, is it okay to burden him with the additional responsibility of leading the side as well? On the plus side, one of the things that I noticed in this particular innings, and in fact, in all the innings after Rohit Sharma became captain, Bumrah has been fielding in the deep most of the time. But if you look at when Bumrah is leading the side, what he does is he positions himself at either mid off or mid on. He walks back with his bowling partner to the partner's mark. After every single ball, they talk, they discuss things, they make field changes according to these discussions. Bumrah is far more proactive and far better at handling bowlers. What I missed in the Indian bowling effort was that despite the fact that the support bowlers were just not penetrative enough, and in fact, they were shoddy, at no point did Rohit Sharma take the initiative to talk to them to get them to focus, to get them to deliver what he wanted to deliver. So yeah, Bumrah with the caveat that it is an awesome burden to place on that guy at this point. Um, Also, Tabilex, we are speaking of tests in Australia. Do you think playing the series in the first part of the Australian summer put India at a disadvantage? I don't know if it's India at a disadvantage really, because at least on a couple of occasions, India has been saved by uncertain weather and reduced overs and stuff. So it's not optimal considering the increasingly strong narrative that these two teams are building in their confrontations. I'd love to see them play in peak summer uh, when they when there is no question of overs being truncated or time being lost. But yeah, it is what it is. Utkarsh says when the green grass giving way to a brownish tinge on the MCG track, making day three arguably the best day for batting. How do you anticipate the pitch to behave on day four? Utkarsh, the thing is, we keep thinking that wickets change in character overnight. They don't. It's a relatively slow process. If there is harsh sun, what happens is that by the evening of day three, you would have had 3 days of the sun beating down on the wicket. It wicks the moisture out of the surface, and that is what starts producing cracks. What has happened over here is one, it's not just the color of the grass. There is 6 to 7 millimeters of grass which binds the soil. Secondly, barring day one, the weather has not been as hot as anticipated. In fact, if you remember yesterday, there were visuals of Kohli and some of the other Indian players sitting in the dugout with shawls wrapped around them because it was there was that kind of cold breeze. So the sun hasn't really had enough time to beat down on this track and uh, to open up cracks. Nothing is going to happen overnight. You're not going to wake up tomorrow and find a different sort of wicket. Um, but yeah, it should logically start playing a bit indifferently on, say, the second half of day four and all of day five. I don't think it'll crack entirely, but you would probably start seeing the odd occasion when the bounce is uncertain, and you could potentially get more turn out of the rough because no matter what the condition of the pitch is, you can't escape creating a rough in the bowler's footmarks. So, yeah. Harish Kotian says Bumrah has been doing well. Before that, Tubby Lex wants to know if I would rate Pat Cummins as the best skipper in the world today. Um, I think it's between Pat Cummins and Ben Stokes at this point. Uh, there was a time when baseball wasn't, or whatever name England gives to its neck or nothing style of play. It wasn't delivering results, but there are increasing signs that the team is now coming together. Some fresh personnel have come into the side, and they're looking a lot better outfit in recent games. So for now, I think yeah, Pat Cummins. Um, Back to Harish's question, Bumrah has been doing well right through the series so far. So how important will be the role of the other seamers tomorrow? Oh, incredibly important. You can't expect Bumrah to take all the wickets. Uh, it's not just that the workload on him becomes enormous and creates the potential for a breakdown just when he doesn't need that, but you need to have pressure at both ends. And what happened in the Australian first innings was that First Mohammad Siraj and even Akashdeep, barring a brief period with the second new ball, pretty much released the pressure that Bumrah was able to create at one end. You also have to remember that Bumrah can at best bowl 4 or 5 over spells. So once his spell is done, you then have at least 10 to 12 overs where two other bowlers are operating. And if you let the pressure go at that point, Bumrah is constantly having to come back and recover ground that has already been lost. Aslam Hanani says Reddy is a man of the moment. Do you think he's got enormous potential? I'm not saying that on the basis of this century alone. I think I said that after his first two test innings. Both of them were high class. Even then, I felt that he was batting way too deep. It is not optimal for having to have him bat in the middle with only the tail for company. Um, I think he's one of the most promising batsmen that I've seen coming out of India in recent times, along with Yashasvi Jaiswal for sure. He could well form the nucleus of the next India. Um, Three Legs says that when Reddy was picked, I was frankly skeptical. Didn't think he would make the cut. It's a delightful surprise, yes. Was I surprised as well? And do you think he's a long-term prospect for India? He's definitely a long-term prospect for India, and I think that the team management needs to let him know that and to give him the comfort of knowing that his place is assured for a while, so that he can absorb a not failure. And look, I don't care how great a batsman is, one or two failures are in the uh, on the cards. That's true for everybody. And also remember that in these days of video analysis, people will be taking a very, very close look at how Nitish Reddy bats and trying to come up with um counters to his style of play. So, yeah, the pressure will only mount on him from now on. The expectations are mounting, uh, all of that. But to the question about whether I was surprised, um, when Reddy was picked, I wasn't quite sure. I hadn't seen him play. Uh, when he played that first innings, I was struck by the caliber of his stroke play, but also the sheer confidence that he brought to his play. So, yeah, he's just continued to surprise and continued to rub in the point that he is one for the long haul. Um, Aslam Hanani also says Kohli's aggressiveness is being wasted. Do you think it would have been better if it was for the game rather than? Oh yeah, I mean, if you're going to, uh, all this aggro and intent and playing with passion and all that, where you actually need it is at the batting crease and in the field, and not necessarily in how you behave towards your opponents. One thing though, I did notice that when, in fact, I meant to make a mention of it on my blog. I forgot. When Smith got to his 100, uh, outside of his partner at the time, the first player to come up and congratulate him with a smile and a pat on the back was Virat Kohli. There are times when he does the right thing, and that is why I think, look, if he was consistently a jerk, you would just write him off and say, look, that's the way he is. But he has good impulses most of the time, which is why the few occasions when he wanders off the reservation become so hard to take. He's better than that. Ashish Narsale says, in hindsight, has it been a good move to play two spinners? Could it make a difference tomorrow if the pitch turns? Ashish, one way to look at it is Australia has played one spinner and three quicks with a part-time quick in Mitchell Marsh, and it hasn't done them all that good, right? Yeah, Australia is leading, but India did manage to. India has now played 115 overs. If I remember correctly, the Australian innings lasted for 115 overs. So, whether it was the right move or not, I think is a judgment that will be made at the end of the test match. At this point in time, uh, they haven't done much good with the ball, but they haven't uh, let the team down either, put it that way. In fact, because you had the two spinners, you had two advantages. One, You didn't fall too far behind on the over rate. And if you do that, you lose points for the WTC. We are already on the back foot in terms of qualifying for that, and we don't need to lose points. The other is that it gave some relief to Bumrah in particular, but to the quick bowlers in general. Rahul says, what do you think of the reaction by Gavaskar after Pant got out? There is a Tamil interview that uh, Ashwin gave just a few days ago. And somewhere in there, he talks about, he says there is a legend of cricket who goes to sleep after every commentary stint. And then he wakes up and does the next stint. And when he's doing that, he says, how can this person do that? And he slams players. Ashwin actually said, I wouldn't mind if he pointed to flaws from a technical point of view, but just to slang players, he didn't use the word slang, but I'm paraphrasing, just to slang players is not on. Ashwin didn't name the legendary player thing. He just gets his bee in his bonnet that this is a bad thing to do. You know what you should do? The next time Pant scores, I mean, plays one of those shots and gets it to the boundary or beyond the boundary, what if Gavaskar is on the commentary panel? Watch what he says. He'll say, "This is the way he plays. He's taken the attack back to the opposition." All that blah. I've heard that before. So, yeah. Tabilex says you want Nitish to bat higher. Maybe his success is tied to him playing lower in the order when the Aussie bowlers are weary. Maybe he may not be as successful at number 5. What do you think? Uh, Boss, one of the things that I was thinking of, and I mentioned it briefly earlier as well, forget this innings. All the previous innings, barring one where he scored some 16 or so, he's really scored runs when it was needed. And he scored them in company of a very uncertain tailenders, which basically meant that he couldn't play the way he played today. He couldn't be calm and composed about his innings. He had to try and hit every other ball out of sight. And he still top scored for us. Um, I don't think watching the way he played, and it's also worth remembering that he did face the second new ball. It's not like he hasn't played the new ball; he has. So yeah, the Australian bowlers were somewhat weary by the time Nitish came out to bat. I'll grant you that, but that's a given, and there's no definitive answer for this. But from not just the runs he scored, in fact, not at all the runs he scored, just watching the way he approached his cricket, I think he has what it takes. I think he has what it takes to bat much higher than he is batting right now, probably 5. Yeah. Utkarsh says, building on Aslam's question about Kohli's on-field behavior with Constance, while Aussie media was quick to criticize Kohli, they seemed to relish Constance's cheeky send-off when Kohli was dismissed. Yeah, they suggested that it was tit for tat. Look, like I told somebody yesterday on chat, I honestly couldn't give a damn what the Aussie tabloids in particular have to say about anything. They have a history of being over the top. Um, and it typically happens, right? It's not just the Aussie media. Let's face it. Even we support our own and criticize the opponent. Sometimes make up things out of whole cloth. We've done all of that. Um, in fact, if you remember, what was our response to the Kohli Constance confrontation? Almost immediately, it was what about Ray? What about Ponting? Didn't he do that? What about Langer? Didn't he do this? What about McGrath? Didn't he spit at the feet of? Basically, we try to justify a wrong action by saying other people have done wrong things as well, which is not the defense you really want, because that defense admits that you're wrong. Uh, no, honestly, let's not waste time on the Aussie media. There are good media people. One of the things that you notice is some of the best names in Australian cricket are Australian cricket writing. Gideon Haigh, Peter Layla. Both of them have quit mainstream media and they've started their own blog and portal. It's called Cricket at All. They've been doing excellent work on that portal. But what does that tell you? That they're no longer willing to be part of mainstream media. One of the reasons, and I know Gideon is a friend, one of the reasons for their leaving is because they just had it up to here with how the media operates. That's one of the reasons, by the way. But yeah, it's an important reason. And you also have to remember that going out on your own and trying to build a livelihood on the basis of a Substack uh, blog is a very uncertain proposition. And yet they're willing to do that rather than continue to be part of mainstream media in Australia. Lakshmi Negi has a question. When Reddy was batting for a brief moment, Hanuma Vihari was talking about Reddy. I presume there is a yeah. When Reddy was batting for a brief moment, Hanuma Vihari was talking about Reddy. It was so heartening. This guy is lost in the current setup. What can India do so that we do not lose such players? Yeah, Lakshmi, this is an argument, or this is a conversation that at least some of us have been having. I know that I've been having this conversation from the mid '90s when I started covering cricket. Uh, Friends like Sharda Ogra and all that have had this same conversation even before that. The problem with Indian cricket administration is that it gives undue weightage to the so-called stars. And the stars are not stars purely on the basis of their performance. They are stars because of their brand value, because of the PR that they can bring to the table, because of who they know, what kind of influence they have behind the scenes, all of that. And what has happened as a result is that far too many players have fallen by the wayside. What can we do? Get out of the star culture. Look, the latest example is Rohit Sharma, right? Rohit has been out of form, not just in this series, he was out of form in the series against New Zealand and even before that. And yet, what happens with almost no discussion whatsoever? The coach and the selector. And remember, the coach was part of the selection committee meeting, which is a luxury that previous coaches haven't had. Gautam Gambhir and the selection committee opted to retain Rohit Sharma as captain. And this is despite the fact that Rohit had already announced that he wouldn't be playing the first test. Uh, what explains that other than star culture? That's been the bane of Indian cricket throughout, and it continues to be the bane of Indian cricket. Some of the star players, if they were judged purely on the basis of returns, they wouldn't have the place they do in this lineup. Anand Shah says, why is Kohli the point of debate in Australia? It's Test cricket. Age status has nothing to do with it. Play hard, play tough, or go play chess. Anand, I agree with play hard, play tough. Every international player signs up to play also according to the rules. So if you read the rule book, there is a very clear rule against physical confrontation. Cricket is a no contact sport, and that is what has sparked this debate. The difference is not you either play cricket or you play chess. If you want to play contact sport, go play rugby for that matter, or even football to an extent. You can tackle in football. You can't do that in cricket. So this is not playing hard. This is playing in a thuggish fashion. That one instance. And remember, I also made the point that he was the first to go and congratulate Smith. So I'm not beating on him for everything. I'm beating on him for this one particular act. Harish Kotian says, could Reddy play as a second, third seamer in Indian conditions? No. I mean, even without reading the rest of the question, which is with a bat, he can bat at number 5 or 6. He is very good against spinners. How important is it to manage his workload going forward? I think it is time to reassess Nitish Kumar Reddy's portfolio and to say that he's a batter who, at best, can give you 3 or 4 fairly tight overs when one of your frontline bowlers needs a rest. You have to think of him as a batsman, which means finding a place for him in the top 6. You've got to stop thinking of him as a bowler. Nitish Kumar Reddy, even in conditions like in Australia, which favors seam bowling, was fairly anodyne, really. I mean, those he did get the odd wicket here and there, and occasionally moved the ball off the thing. But I think one way of putting it is he was probably the Indian equivalent with the ball of Mitchell Marsh for Australia. Uh, Very rarely penetrative, non-threatening, uh, and this is in Australian conditions which favor seam bowling. On Indian conditions which don't, I don't think that he can be the second or third seamer. No way. I don't know if he'll increase his pace and get better at bowling. Funnily enough, before the series, Morne Morkel, I remember in one interview, uh, said Nitish Kumar Reddy is the one who will surprise everybody. Morne Morkel is the bowling coach, and I presume that he was talking about Reddy's bowling. Reddy did surprise everybody, but not with the ball. It was with the bat. Ashish Narsale, what target do you think Australia needs to set to make a match out of it, and how many overs would they need to bowl India out? I wish it was an exact science. I would think Australia would be very uncomfortable with setting something like 300 if India has about 100 overs to chase it. You have to understand that targets are dependent on both the runs you have to chase, but also the number of overs you have to chase it in. There's a difference between asking a team to chase 300 in, say, 60, 70 overs. That team is going into bat knowing that it's almost impossible to win. Whereas you ask a team to chase that same number of runs in 100, 110 overs, the team mentality will be all right, I'll play out the new ball. I'll just play conservative cricket. I'll see where we are after about 15, 20 overs. Then we'll slowly start accelerating. All of those possibilities open up. So it's going to be that balance, the number of runs on the board versus the number of overs that India has to chase them down. Tanmay Kenkre says, whose ownership is it to end star culture? This is a tough position to take. So who bells the cat? Jay Shah, chief selector or coach? We do need a Dhoni-esque mindset again. I leave the last part out because I'm not entirely convinced that Dhoni was totally against star culture or that star culture didn't exist in Dhoni's time. But whose onus is it? Is definitely up to the coach and the selectors. Uh, the irony is that some of the people who have held the selectors post in recent times were players or just past their playing careers when back when I was doing cricket. I've spoken to some of these guys, and they have criticized star culture. As players, they have suffered from it, and now as selectors or as administrators, they're actually perpetuating it. Why all that? Even Gautam Gambhir has talked about star culture. He's actually pointed at some of the members of the current team during his stint as commentator. Now that he is coach, he seems perfectly fine with star culture. So we know who has the onus of ending this, but equally we know that irrespective of who comes into the administrative position and into the selectors' chairs, this is not going to happen. We are like this only. We need our brands, we need our advertisement, we need brand man, all of those things. Is it It's too early to, this is Harish Kotian, it's too early to judge Gautam Gambhir, but how would you analyze his coaching stint so far? He has more downs than ups. He has taken some brave calls which have fallen flat. It is too early to judge Gautam Gambhir, but to analyze his coaching stint, what do we base this analysis on? If it is results, they've been abysmal. If it is the way he has as coach and as the leader of the on-tour management, Gautam Gambhir would have a great role to play in picking the playing 11. If you're looking at the playing 11, some of the selections have been particularly bizarre. Uh, Based on all of that, I don't know how you can come up with a realistic. You can't assess him on the basis of results. You can't assess him on the basis of the teams he has picked. What do we assess him on? Um, And as far as brave calls falling flat, look, bravery is not just jumping off a cliff. Um, you pick somebody out of left field, the call falls flat. That's not bravery. That's, I don't know, the opposite. Stupidity, maybe. But yeah, I'll go back to that first thing that you said. It's a bit too early to definitely judge him. The problem for Gautam Gambhir is the next tour is going to be equally demanding. India goes to England for a 5 test series, and that's not going to be easy. So I don't know. Maybe he had a share of bad luck as well, playing a good New Zealand side on conditions that were meant to favor India but ended up favoring the visitors, then Australia. We'll see. Lakshmi Negi. Should we temper our expectations from Reddy? We've seen this before with Hardik Pandya when he was hailed as the next couple day when he burst onto the scene. The funny thing is, Hardik Pandya could still play a fairly sizable role in this Test 11. If you're thinking of bowling all rounders, and particularly for a third or fourth seamer, uh, I would imagine that on balance, Hardik Pandya is better than, I don't know, at this point, than Siraj, Akashdeep, and the others. Uh, so Hardik Pandya is being shifted almost entirely to white ball cricket is a bit puzzling. I don't know what the thinking behind that is. Um, I think he could actually be effective in this lineup, but that's a different argument. As far as expectations from Reddy are concerned, I don't know about general expectations. Expectation, as far as I'm concerned, is he has talent, he has ability, he has a surprisingly mature approach to his batting. The only thing I expect is that he will have a fair degree of uh, influence in Indian batting for some time to come. Won't Gambhir have a challenge during the Champions Trophy, or will Lakshman be the coach for the CT Tabby legs? Uh, One of the things that I noticed was when India was playing white ball cricket in the West Indies, etc., Gambhir wasn't even with the team. He was with the Indian Test team. Uh, I don't know what they're thinking. It is one thing to split uh, teams between the red ball version and the white ball versions, but if both red ball and white ball teams to be playing in different venues at the same time, I don't know what you're going to do about the coaching. Um Funnily enough, Gambhir just might make a better white ball coach than a red ball coach. Uh, his chief claim to fame is the way he's both led and coached KKR in T20s. So, yeah. Now, as far as whether Lakshman will come back as coach for Champions Trophy, I really don't know. One of the problems with this administration is there is nobody to ask and nobody who will respond. Kumar says, do you think we should have two spinners in this test? That ship sailed. No, we have two spinners. So now the question is, how best do you utilize them? Kumar also says, gone are those days when we had Anil Kumble for all the tests around the world, regardless of how pitches play. Yeah, gone are the days. Uh, Tabilex also wants to know final thoughts for day four. Funnily enough, you could pretty much say this about any test day, I guess, but yet again, the first session of play tomorrow will be incredibly critical. Can Australia take the remaining wicket within an over or two? Can Nitish Reddy add another 15, 20 runs and bring that lead under 100? What attitude does Australia come in with? The logical one is play fairly regular test style cricket in the opening overs, particularly. I mean, you don't just come out and start uh, swinging away at somebody like Jasprit Bumrah. So, do you play fairly conservatively? I don't know what Constance will do, by the way, but do you play fairly conservatively and then look to build and maybe bat till about an hour before stumps before putting India in, or do you go helter skelter, try to put up around 250 odd runs and give India 100 runs to try and chase that down? Uh, all of these are going to be determinants, and we'll get answers to all of this in that first session. In fact, in the first hour of play. So yeah, looking forward to that. And with that, thank you everybody for the company and for the questions. See you back with the next episode of the Stump Show at the end of day four's play tomorrow. It's going to be fun. Bye bye.